Will Page is the Chief Economist for the PRS for music. Will graduated with an MSc in Economics from the University of Edinburgh. You'll recognise his accent very soon after he comes up on the stage. He previously worked for the UK Government Economic Service. His role at the PRS is to work as a Chief Economist, providing analytical support to colleagues within the organisation. He's got published pieces of work which have been covered by The Guardian, The Economist, and the Financial Times. A colleague of mine, I think, once introduced Will at one of our events that we ran a couple of years ago. I think it's probably the best way of introducing him is when Will moved down to London to work for the PRS in 2006, everyone was asking, what's an economist doing in the music industry? Over 4 years later, people now wonder how on earth the music industry got by without economics. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Will Page to the stage. Thank you.
Grand stuff. Thanks. Yeah, you're going to have to put up with some economics, which is hard, a Scottish accent, which is harder, and I've almost lost my voice, which is harder still. But hopefully we can plow through this. And I thought that previous presentation was great. The remark about American Idol and Pop Idol and the point on passports. I just want to echo the most popular thing American tourists say when they visit my hometown of Edinburgh is, gee, Dan, isn't it great to build the castle so close to the train station? Which you may want to wonder about. In America, you build the train, and they demand the houses. Economics, for me, is not about maths. It's not about funny graphs. It's about abstraction. Can you look at a problem differently and therefore come out with a better solution? That's the way this economics area of this presentation is going to go today. And I think that quote there is a useful one to kick off with, which is perhaps that highlights some of the problems of the old business models in media. Just think about it for a minute. You might want to apply it to radio or TV and wonder where things may have gone wrong in this digital transition. The way that I was given this presentation is to look at insights, ideas, implement, and impact, the 4 I's that we talked about earlier. And I guess where I come from is to look at the insights and ideas. I'm skewed toward the front of this chain. Hopefully by the end of this afternoon, you'll have some implementation and impact ideas to carry on to businesses. The way I want to approach it is to look at new schools of thought, which is where the ideas would come from. But what I've found, bringing economics or rockonomics to this area, is a lot of the old rules of the game apply. So just for a quick example of abstraction, I want you to think about this. Is this how the old business of radio worked, where audience is the product and the advertiser is the customer? And perhaps from there, we can look at some examples from the past and learn from them. What I want to do, and I'm conscious we're running over, is just give 3 very important case studies from the past, which we can then drag into the rest of the afternoon session. One's going to be on pens, the other's going to be on books, and the third one's going to be on ice cream. I'll explain how it goes. Parker Pens is just a fascinating case study, real quick. Parker Pens is in the business of putting ink on paper. It's a pen. That's all it is, right? Along comes a biro, which is a far more cost-efficient mechanism of putting ink on paper. So what does Parker Pens do? Is it game over, last one out, lock the gate? But it moved into the business of gifts, where it found a far more lucrative trajectory to follow. So getting out of the business of putting ink on paper and into the business of gifts was one way Parker Pens survived that transition. A second example is the book token, which you're all familiar with. What I find interesting in this quick case study is the book token was overlooked during the 1920s through the boom period of the gold standard. They actually came into being during the heart of the Great Depression. So when things couldn't get any worse, this idea of the book token came into being. Point being, even in a depression, people still buy gifts. Birthdays and Christmases don't go away when you're in an economic downturn. And what a great measure of currency to ensure that gift is actually going to be a book. Very clever idea, which came out of the Great Depression. So when things were really tough, a great innovative idea came out of it. The third one's a little bit trickier to explain. It just relates to ice cream, but it's really important for media to get their head around this story. I just want you to imagine this. Imagine a beach which is 2 miles long, and everybody on that beach is evenly distributed, because we all want our same square yard of sand to ourselves. And there's only a monopoly ice cream provider on the beach. One person is selling ice cream on that beach, and they're located to the north end of this beach. So everybody has to travel to the one provider of ice cream. Now we're going to enter competition. So a second ice cream provider enters the beach. Where is the rational place for that second ice cream stall to locate itself? The first one is at the north end. Any ideas? The south end would be logical because that's where a lot of people are. What happens in practice is they both converge towards the middle. And you probably have seen this yourselves when you look at a beach. All the area of commerce happens in the middle. It doesn't move towards the end. Now, hopefully you can see the carry across of this case study, because you could apply it to stick with radio, radio ownership, radio playlists. Why does everything converge towards the middle, which means more of the consumers have to walk further to get to that product? It's just a very interesting application of economics to media. Leaving those case studies, I want to focus a large part of this presentation on live. And I'll tell you where I'm coming from. We collect £600 million for our songwriters and music publishers at PRS. Around 30 is digital. So 30 million of the 600 is digital. And I like to apply a 95-5 rule, which is we spend 95% of our time discussing 5% of our revenues. And there's something a little bit uneven about that. There's an awful lot more going on that we can learn from, especially this afternoon, than just looking at iTunes, Spotify, and lots of other digital music services. Importantly, to look at the story of live. Now, to do this, if you remember the old analogy of you tour at a loss to sell CDs, and for the record labels here, also that thing called tour support, how a business model used to work. Record labels would finance the tour because that would build up a fan base, which would then buy the CD. Obviously, we're buying CDs less now, going to gigs more, so that model is under stress. For those in television, you could apply this to the terms of trade debate, which I find quite interesting too. But I just want to pick up on this with a chart which shows the pace in which this revenue change is taking place in, where we've got bars which represent the value the consumer spend as recorded music, and an area behind that, the value of live music. So to be clear, in 2004, that bar is telling you that consumers in the UK spent $2 billion on recorded music. The yellow section is retailer margin and sales tax. The red section would be to the record company and the publisher. Behind that, and kind of where we've got a real scoop, is we're able to do analysis of live music because we have the data of the PRS. And in blue, you'd have the value of the primary ticket, that £30 ticket for the Kentish Town Forum, or the HMV Forum, as it's called. In light blue, the value of secondary ticketing, so that would be the eBay, Seatwave, Viagogo, which has exploded since 2006. And then finally, on top of that, ancillary on-the-night spend, be it merch or so on. Now, from that chart, I just want to capture one point, which is how quickly is this changing in the guard taking place? Now, you go back to 2004, live revenues in the UK were less than half that of recorded. Follow through to 2008, where we found out live revenues had actually exceeded that recorded. And concluding with 2009, recorded was flat and live was up 9%. So that's in a very short space of time, while record label contracts last that space of time, the whole live music business in the UK has been transformed. This common sense made complicated, but it's nice to know the numbers back it up. Now, why has that happened? Well, when I first went to Glasgow University, that was the first word that appeared on the slide, which is scarcity. You know, there are 10 million songs on iTunes. If we all consumed them today, they would still be there tomorrow. There's no scarcity in that context, whereas live has scarcity. There's only 200 seats left to see Bon Jovi at O2. So if you really want to see Bon Jovi at the O2, you better move quick. You might not, but that's your choice. Scarcity is an important point, because when you find scarcity, you can then do something with it in terms of monetization. And this leads to the paywall debate with the Times newspaper. Had you just put a paywall on the business data, perhaps fewer people would have left it. Also, the key thing is this. There's a ton of digital innovation happening in live where the money is, which I think is more relevant to the audience than looking at the recorded sector where the money isn't. And the first example I wanted to flag up, which is Songkick, and there's a bunch of claims. Some of these are exclusive for this afternoon, actually, but Songkick's latest achievements. It's basically Facebook for live music nutters. And hundreds of thousands of people in the UK are on it, recommending, documenting gigs to their friends. The big claim is it's now the second most trafficked live music site after Ticketmaster. So that's quite phenomenal for a company which is based in Shoreditch and has only been off the ground for a matter of a few years. It's neutral and independent. It's recommending gigs to friends who wouldn't have otherwise known of them. But importantly, I wanted to flag up these two people, YouTube and PRS Music, who might not see eye to eye on issues of intellectual property, but are partnering here with a tech startup. In the case of YouTube, you're going to move towards a market of stream the song on digital, buy a ticket for the show would be the natural outcome for that, I would imagine. And then for us, Songkick is collecting the setlist information, which we therefore need to pay our songwriters for the performance of those gigs. So it's very interesting to watch how two companies here are working together with Songkick to keep growing this market, which has already done phenomenally well in the past 5 years. Another element of live music is disintermediation. This is happening across media, right? The middleman is under stress, and in live music too. So to explain this point, I wanted to do it this way. Very simply, there's a band. Can anyone name that band? Correct. Good taste. And there's a fan. And what I want to ask is, how many turkeys voting for Christmas do you really need to get a ticket from that band to that fan and cash from that fan back to that band? And the point being, there's a bunch of companies now entering this space, Musical.ly and Topspin being two of the most notable, CrowdSurge, Music Today, and Artist Arena are also involved, which are doing direct artist-to-fan ticketing, so stripping out the middleman and giving the band control on that transaction. I mean, 2 points here to note, which is bands with shrewd managers, Mumford & Sons would be a good example, Pixies are something you can watch on YouTube, you can read that case study there. Kings of Leon, definitely one to watch for their forthcoming global tour, is these bands are able to reach out to their fans directly, which means they see more of the face value of the ticket comes back to them, less cream coming off the milk. And secondly, there's a non-monetary benefit in the data that they're able to gather. So again, what you've got here are examples of bands in a sector which has got scarcity and innovation, and they're capitalizing on it. And I think there's lessons you can learn for other media sectors there too. I wanted to wrap this live section up by just talking about this quote here, which is, where is live going to grow? You've seen those charts. Where would the live industry be by 2015? And it's just 35% of ticket inventory is going unsold as a sort of measure of the spare slack in this market. And one of the main reasons why that takes place is fans didn't know about it. So think about how much more growth potential is in this sector as innovation kicks in. I want to talk about movies quickly, and just to deal with the previous point, movies in the UK last year were up 10%. Here's an interesting hypothesis. Movies were up 10% in the cinema, and live was up around 10%. CD sales suffered, and DVD sales tanked about 12%. And what that tells me is, during a recession, people pay for events, they don't pay for recordings of those events. Maybe something in there. But with movies, what I want to do here is quickly look at the issue of windowing. Again, cinemas have done okay, DVD sales are in trouble. And I brought together the Big Champagne, who's a media measurement company in America who track BitTorrent data, a quick example of a torrent case study of I Am Legend. It's a little bit old, it's November 2007 to June 2008, but it's a typical case study of how illegal consumption of films works over time. Now, what I want to drag your attention to in this chart is there's a spike. In terms of illegal BitTorrent downloads of I Am Legend, it spikes, but it doesn't spike at the beginning. It spikes, 7, 8 weeks down the line. Any ideas what would suddenly drive a spike on BitTorrent for the illegal consumption of I Am Legend?
A good copy of it.
Correct. And the essence of this case study is that quality matters. To explain, it wasn't the Tokyo premiere, nor was it the theatrical release, and nor was it the camera leak. When somebody's filming it inside the cinema and somebody jumps up in the middle at a critical point to use a bathroom. It wasn't those points. Neither of these events caused a sudden spike in the illegal demand on BitTorrent of I Am Legend. What it was, and you're absolutely bang on the money, was a quality DVD leak. Once that quality DVD leak happened, then the pirates went in for it. Now, here's the point about windowing. Here is when the DVDs happened. And now you can see the windowing debate. Alice in Wonderland last year, Harry Potter currently, about do you narrow or broaden that windowing period? Well, it's an interesting case study which makes you understand another form of consumption over and above standard DVD or going to the cinema. Now I want to turn to the issue of popularity and also visibility, and importantly, how these two feed off each other. Really simple. To be visible, you've got to be popular. To be popular, you've got to be visible. So which one comes first? And a great example of this is the iPlayer homepage. And if you look at it, you see most popular. What's popular is visible. What's visible is popular. The reason why Jeremy Clarkson is popular is because he's visible. You see his mugshot when you go to the iPlayer homepage. Now, turning on its head, if we use iGoogle as an example, version 3 of the iPlayer will allow you to design your own homepage. So if all you're interested in is factual documentaries in classical music, that's all you will be visibly exposed to. So therefore, what does that do for the role of editorial? So there's some interesting challenges with this tussle of popularity and visibility, which I think are relevant to our broad church audience here this afternoon. And that makes me want to sort of bring to the point about charts. Charts make popularity visible. That's why you kind of have charts, right? You can see visibly what's popular, so it must therefore be good, so you buy more of it. It's like how you sell crisps to kids in the supermarket. Here's a great example, and this comes from Music Week. One day at work, with a stonking hangover in January, I was looking back at the Media 2009 Airplay charts in Music Week for TV and radio. One observation, The top 30 TV airplay charts did not include Susan Boyle. The usual suspects are there. Lady Gaga's up there, the Black Eyed Peas, huge hit with I Got a Feeling is there. You go down that list of 30 tracks, no Susan Boyle, okay? More interestingly, if you go to the top 75 radio airplay charts of 2009, and you go through again, Lady Gaga, JLS, Beyonce are all there, there is no sign of Susan Boyle in that chart, okay? Which is kind of weird, given what we know happened in 2009 with record sales. I apologize to Matt for the next point, but conversely, sorry. I should never have tried that one. Right, well, this is the kicker. 75 songs got more radio airplay than Susan Boyle, but didn't sell as many records. When was the last time you had a complete breakdown in the correlation of radio airplay and record sales? Our boss told me that it might have been the Sex Pistols who were banned from radio but sold, but I'm sure there's others too. Take a look at this, 1.6 million sales in 2009, most of which were physical, so 1.6 million dead things called CDs sold, and far ahead of Lady Gaga, Michael Bublé, and all these other artists who are dominant in those charts. I think the sale of this album is now 8 million worldwide, and also for America, the highest selling female debut artist in the history of the American recorded music industry, which is not bad for a 49-year-old Scot who's never had a kiss. A clue of where I want to take this is to bring it back to the firm that's invited me to speak here today, YouTube, which is to take a look at the same time as those charts, the all-time most viewed video charts. To note, it's all-time, and for a global platform, she is not only at number 2 with 87.8 million views, she is also number 7, the audacity of a sneezing baby panda pushing her into 7th place, with 37.9 million views. And when you add it all up, you're probably exceeding 200 million views of I Dreamed a Dream on YouTube, which is quite phenomenal. There's a but to this story. There's always a but in media debates, and that, for my American colleague, is an all-American but. Is that debate, which is, does YouTube steer culture? Does YouTube drive the success of Susan Boyle? Or is Susan Boyle driving the success of YouTube? And that you can leave over to the commercial negotiations. Wrapping the presentation up, which is, let's talk about an ultimate chart. Again, this is a very interesting development in America. The ultimate chart is not a Nielsen SoundScan chart or an official charts company chart. It's trying to gather all the information about visibility and popularity into one metric to gauge what is truly popular. And just really quickly, we've got an artist here called Far East Movement, and the song's Like a G6, which I'm reliably informed is the next generation Learjet. And the chart that the ultimate chart company uses features all of these participants, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and so on. And the interesting thing that they're doing here is, Like a G6 got to number 1 on the ultimate chart long before it got to number 1 on any other conventional charts. So if you're in media and you need to know what's visible and popular, you need to know a broader range of metrics to calculate that answer from. Importantly, if you look at the bottom here, you have sales, the conventional market, broadcast, which is really important. You could be a hit on BBC, but not a hit in the stores. Watching and listening, and fans, friends, and followers, and they were able to track the progress of this particular song, which kind of brings the presentation to a conclusion. So what I want to finish on is just with that message there, which is for the audience for the rest of this afternoon, please think like a dick. Don't act like a dick, think like a dick. I don't want to sound like I'm endorsing this guy here, but I think it's one of the most profound things he ever said. Dick Cheney once said that economic indicators can't be trusted because you don't have the data of the stuff that people are spending on eBay. So what am I supposed to do if the high street is down? Cut interest rates, fiscal stimulus? Or perhaps those consumers are spending more than ever before, but I just don't know about it. And I think that's one of the underlying problems with media adjusting to digital is measurement. You know, what can be measured matters. So that's a really, really strong, again, I really don't want to endorse Dick Cheney. This is to despise a guy, but he did get that one spot on. So I want to conclude the presentation with those words. Think like a dick, but don't act like a dick. Thank you very much for your time.